So in the UK, there was over 4 million Victorian terrace houses built during that Victorian era. The first one we bought, that was £63,000 for a 3-bed terraced house. Another 80 grand on that to turn it into a 6-bed ensuite student house, really high standard.
We have dealt with a number of people over the years who have found themselves in these situations. So I just want to paint a picture of what could potentially happen if you decide to go down the new build. So what you talked about there with people buying an apartment for say £150,000, it's the developer that makes the money fundamentally. When you're buying anything, it's a developer that's dictating the value of the properties. We never, ever buy new builds.
Hi and welcome to This Property Life, the podcast brought to you by Property Wealth System. At This Property Life, we try and give you insights into the real world of property investing, the good, the bad, the ugly, warts and all. We tell you the good things, the bad things, the highs and the lows. And we don't shy away from, being honest and open about our own journey, what we've learned over the years of property investing, and hopefully what we can offer you to save you some of the hassles and heartaches that we've, I guess, had to endure. I'm Nick Claydon, and today I'm joined by my partner in life and all things property related, Caroline Claydon. And we're going to discuss a subject of great and frequent debate amongst ourselves as mentors and some of our students as well, which is, should I buy new builds or 2-up, 2-down terraced houses? Which is best for investment? Yes, a subject that is pretty frequent in terms of discussion. I think, Caroline, you've got a perspective from the stuff you've done with international investors.
Yes.
Quite a different mindset and take on this.
That's right.
To probably people who are in the UK. So yeah, 2-up, 2-downs or new builds.
I can see the attraction of new builds. I'm going to set my stall out, not that that's unlike me, set my stall out early and say that we never, ever buy new builds or off plan for very good reason, which we will explain in this episode. But I can see the attraction of buying a new build because you don't have to do any refurb and people are terrified of working with builders or costs of doing renovations, the hassle of doing renovations. And so they're buying a brand new, ready to go, turnkey business in a box, if you like, if they're buying it for an investment. And what they love about it is that when phase 1 of the development is released to market to buy, they know that they're only putting down a small deposit initially. And then when phase 2 and phase 3 and phase 4 of the development are released, then of course, the value of those properties, which haven't even been built yet, that was agreed a price in phase 1 has gone up in value. So that looks on paper as if you are making money from nothing. And well, you are. But I think there's a lot that we need to consider. Now, I'm not saying that you're crazy or you're an idiot for buying a new build, because I do know very, very savvy investors who play the new build game, but they play the game for a different reason, and that's to just flip on and get very short gains very quickly, and they're very, very savvy with what they're doing. So I'm just going to caveat what I'm saying right now in a little bubble around that. It's more for people who are thinking about investing in property. They don't really know what they're doing. They don't have maybe the foundation of assets under their belts, and they're buying a new build because they believe it to be safer. There's a few things that's a problem with new builds. If I can just, should I just jump into that now, Nick?
Well, let me, if I can, get a word in, which I know is, they like. But
that's why I just wanted to check in, because I could see you, like, your eyes glazing over.
Well, we should have the speaking paddle. Like, can I speak now? Yeah, and I think what you talked about before, I think, the wider public or people looking to get into property investing sometimes mistake speculating for investing.
Yeah.
So, and I get, if you're niche and you know what you're doing, then buying and flipping on new builds can work really well, but that's not investing.
Yeah.
That is, I'm not going to use the word gambling. It's speculating.
It is.
Yeah. It's, putting some money down with a hope to making a quick profit and get out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so that's different.
you can't control it. You can't create any value to that asset. You don't know that you can carry out certain actions to then add that value, which is what we base all of our business on, right?
Yeah, you are reliant on the market
Yeah,
doing the job for you, which is great until it doesn't.
yeah,
So, for those of us that can remember and rewind back to 2006, 5, 6, new builds was all the rage, like big, tower blocks and new build flats and developments were going up in, London, places like Manchester and Liverpool, across the northwest, Leeds, places like that. A lot of regional centres saw a lot of new build properties going up,
yeah,
mainly flats. And investors were piling in because rates were super low. It looked like a no-brainer: buy a new build flat and rent it out to the developers are very, very good at painting the picture of the lifestyle. Your tenants' lifestyle. If you're pitching it at tenants, they can be sipping chilled glass of Chardonnay on a balcony overlooking the waterfront in Manchester, whatever, right? But the reality was that whilst everything was going up, great, worked. But as soon as the economy turned, we had the credit crunch. That suddenly stopped working because actually, if you took a price of, let's say, I don't know, a new build flat in Manchester that was maybe selling 150 grand,
yeah,
at that time, you could go and buy a 3-bed terrace round the corner, probably for half that, certainly 2/3 of that. And that could be let to a family who maybe didn't want to be on a 15th floor of a tower block in a 2-bed flat and actually wanted to have a house with a garden, 3 bedrooms.
yeah,
It was just much more attractive as a tenancy. So I think a lot of people were sucked into that. So I think people trying to speculate, make money off new builds. And what we talk about is looking at the kind of standard type of investment, but an actual investment that's a long-term investment, where your tenant's going to be paying you rent for over the long period, and that's a very different thing. So I think that going back to what you said at the very beginning, if you know what you're doing and flipping new builds on, great, but you really do have to know what you're doing, and you are market reliant. But that's not what we teach in terms of investing.
yeah.
If you are loving what you're hearing on this Property Life podcast, you can join us for a free training that will give you a 7-step process, a roadmap on how to start and scale a property investment business. The 7th step of the process is the most surprising of all. It really shakes people when they learn that 7th and final step. You will also get some live case studies of deals our students are working on right now for training that's worth over £1,000. You can access that free by clicking the link in the show notes to access that 1 hour of content today.
So what you talked about there with people buying an apartment for, say, £150,000, it's the developer that makes the money fundamentally. When you're buying anything, it's a developer that's dictating the value of the properties. And they're the ones that are making the profit. Make no mistake about that. To make your profit, you need that market to continue to inflate at the same rate as they've led you to believe that it's inflating. And you need to have a very strong customer base of tenants willing to pay the over market rent for that new shiny build 2-bed apartment overlooking the water or whatever. And that's you entering into not the mainstream market. We talk about buy average properties for average people that can afford average prices. And that's pretty recession proof. Whereas when you're going for high end, condos or apartments in Canary Wharf or Manchester, Leeds, wherever, then suddenly that's a different demographic you're trying to attract. And that changes your end user and therefore the results that you get. So the developer's making the money, they're dictating the value of those properties. It's not really the market that's dictating that value. Then I want to talk about the whole oversupply, because if you have a developer that's building a tower block of apartments, let's say there's how many apartments, 100 apartments coming onto the market in different phases, and they're selling maybe at least a third of them to investors, and I'll put them in inverted commas, then those investors are all going to come onto the market with exactly the same product at roughly the same time, charging the same price. That changes the supply and demand in the marketplace again. And remember, the demographics changed as well. So how many people are willing to pay an overinflated rent for a 2-bed apartment when it might be a family who'd rather have a little garden outside and pay a cheaper rent, right? So the supply and demand thing really is the biggest reason, because it's exactly carbon copy product that you're bringing to the marketplace. And then if, let's say, a percentage of the investors who've purchased are not managing to rent their property out because they've oversupplied, then they might try and sell it. So you will see in new developments, it's quite common for maybe a few months after that development's been completed, seeing a few more for sale signs. So people who've bought it from the developer and then have decided that they want to sell, maybe because their circumstances have changed, or frankly, that they're not getting the tenants paying the rent that they thought they would, and therefore they want to then try and sell. And again, if you've got 3 of those apartments up for sale at the same time, then a buyer's looking at it going, well, which one do I want? If they're all looking the same and at the same price, then it's not really you don't have a product that people are crying out for, because there's more than one available at the time. So that then can drive the price down if it goes on that marketplace.
And it's also because the tenant profile that you're looking to attract is very niche.
Yeah.
And I think this is what a lot of beginner investors, novice investors get wrong when they're looking at investing. They make the mistake of thinking about what maybe they would want to live in. And they're not actually thinking about what the market wants for the private rented sector. So they're, again, as I said, they're sold kind of the dream of, the young couple, both in high paying jobs, sipping their wine on the terrace. But is that the reality of what your tenant profile is for, for building an investment portfolio? I would say no, because it's pretty niche. You're talking about just one little sector of the whole rented, and tenant sector, if you like. When I talk to students I'm working with, mentoring them, I talked about this quite a lot, because a lot of people get this wrong. It's to think, what do those people, that young upwardly mobile couple, what are they actually really looking to do? Most of the time, they're looking to buy, right? And what does a young upwardly mobile couple tend to do within a few years? Get married, maybe have kids. Then do they want to be living in a 15th floor, 2-bedroom apartment? Probably not. What do they want to live in? What everybody else wants to live in, which is a 2 or 3-bedroom house with a garden and a parking space, maybe. So, it's about getting that kind of what we would call the tenant avatar right, and thinking about, well, what actually is the wider market? The wider market isn't that one very specific niche avatar. The wider rental market is families.
Yeah.
And therefore, that's the type of market as an investor that you want to be targeting. So for me, in terms of new builds versus Victorian terraces, it's not even an argument. For investors who want to take this seriously and build a portfolio, it is going to be Victorian terrace. I love Victorian terraced houses. I could go on all day about why I love Victorian terraced houses, and I would never even consider a new build apartment.
Yeah.
And by the way, we are talking specifically about the UK here. It is different in different places. Somebody might be sitting there going, well, what about Dubai? It's all new build there. Well, we're not talking about Dubai. Okay, that's a whole different thing. And you've got to investigate that market. Okay, but in the UK, I did a quick bit of research before, just to get a few numbers. So in the UK, there was over 4 million Victorian terrace houses built during that Victorian era. 4 million houses. And, they're found all over the country. I've been all over the country mentoring for the last 15 years, anywhere from, Newcastle, Sunderland in the north, right down to Portsmouth, Southampton on the south coast, and everywhere in between. These Victorian terrace houses are everywhere, generally 2 or 3 bedroom, occasionally some larger properties. The next kind of era was Edwardian, and there are very similar types of houses there. But generally, we're talking about the Victorian terraces. Everyone knows them. sometimes 2 bedrooms, sometimes 3 bedrooms upstairs, 2 rooms downstairs, front garden, back garden, city centre. For me, that is your perfect buy-to-let. But it's also your perfect HMO. It's also, in the right place, a great Airbnb. They're so versatile, these houses.
Yeah.
Some of these were built 150 years ago. They're still there.
Before we start jumping into how excited you are about Victorian terraced houses, right, which I can tell you're about to go off on one about, I just want to touch a little more about the new builds and the danger that you are potentially facing if it doesn't go the way that you expect it to. And we have dealt with a number of people over the years who have found themselves in these situations. So I just want to paint a picture of what could potentially happen if you decide to go down the new build route. And that is that, sorry, you find that the values they fluctuate way bigger swings than the traditional Victorian properties, for example. The properties that have the history tend to only move in very, very small increments, whereas the new builds are much bigger swing. So when you have, let's say, a recession hit, a new build that's been sold for 150 might find itself only valued at 105. Now that is a big swing. And now although you're in negative equity, that's not disastrous if you can still, cover the mortgage payments with the rent, but you tend to then find that if interest rates then go against you, that the rent doesn't then cover not just the mortgage, it's the service charges, right? And these service charges, particularly on the newer builds, can be quite lumpy.
So just explain for anyone who's not sure, what do you mean by service charges?
Well, the service charge is what you pay on an annual basis, but you would chunk it down and pay it monthly, for having the communal stairwells maintained and looked after, and the CCTV. Maybe there might be a concierge area or a security man.
Lift.
Pardon?
A lift as well.
A lift, servicing the lift. There, you might even have a gym in your new build complex. So having all that looked after and maintained and cared for, that would all fall under this service charge that you'd need to pay. Well, it's an annual charge, but like I say, you just direct debit that monthly. So when you have the mortgage plus that service charge, in Scotland, we have something called factoring, which is similar to a service charge. Then that suddenly makes this not only negative equity, you now have a negatively geared and negatively cash flowing property. So we have, over the years, helped a lot of people in very nasty positions that have involved new builds. And I do want to sort of say, without mentioning any names, there is a property education company out there right now who is actively selling off-plan new builds to people that are high-value properties, 300 grand plus, actively saying how amazing it is, saying, rents of 3 grand a month, blah, 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 in cities like, Manchester, Leeds and the likes. And people are putting 5 grand deposits down, 100 grand deposits down. And we are saying to them, you have to pull out of that. That will absolutely floor you. This is going to sink you. And that property education company, guess what? They have a finger in the pie with the developer. And you have to use their solicitors. They have a finger in the pie for that. And you have to use their brokers. They have a finger in the pie for that. So if you want to know who that is, I'm happy to share it with you if you want to DM me on Instagram, carolineclayton.property. But I won't publicly get into that battle on this forum now. But I know that they are basically funding their property education business from selling those new builds there. So there we are. You heard it here, hot off the press.
It's out there. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that infuriates me and us, I know, because as property educators, we, absolutely stay away from actually, getting involved in any transactions. And we're here to teach, and it fundamentally goes against everything that we would teach. Because we're looking, we want to help people get into property and make a success of property investing.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes sometimes wannabe investors are sometimes their own worst enemy, because it can seem easier to think, well, look, I can just put a deposit down here and the market's great. I can just make a return, and I can rent out my properties because they're telling me that the rent's going to be £3,000 a month. It's going to be amazing. And happy days. I'll buy one or two of them and retire. And as anything in life, it's never that easy. Anything that looks easy, generally, there's a reason why it might look easy. It won't be. It's easy until it goes wrong, okay? And that's when it becomes very difficult to deal with.
Well, there was a company that were doing exactly the same as what I've just described. This company are doing, and you can check them out. They're called Inside Track.
That was
they don't they
20 years ago.
Like 20 years ago, I think 15, 20 years ago, they folded, but they did exactly the same. They got people into a room under the premise of, teaching them something, and then gave them the basics of maybe deal analysis, and then said, oh, and here's all these properties that you could buy, but you have to book them now, and da-da-da-da-da. And guess what? It was just one massive big racket, and they had to fold. Yeah, big Ponzi scheme. They had to fold.
Yeah. You've got to be careful out there if you're looking to get into investing. Anything that looks like really easy generally never is. We always say simple, not easy.
Join us for our 3-day property intensive workshop. This is world renowned. This is the program I took global for Rich Dad Education and Robert Kiyosaki. This 3-day intensive workshop will go through a step-by-step process on how you are going to choose the correct strategy for your life, your circumstances. We'll go through the pros and cons of each of these strategies, and then we'll show you how to actually pinpoint your investment area, how to find the deals in that investment area, as well as how to do the deal analysis. That deal analysis saves you from making any expensive mistakes in the property market. We'll show you how to raise the money. There are more than 40 different ways of raising money to structure your deals in a creative way. We'll show you how to make lump sums of cash, as well as residual monthly income. We'll also look deep into the whole psychology and how you can use debt to create generational wealth. We'll go into multi-million pound transactions, as well as the little baby buy-to-lets at the start. And we'll show you how to actually create that wealth plan for the future so that your generations to come can benefit from the work you put in today. When you secure your ticket to the next 3-day intensive property workshop, you will also qualify for our bonus material. We have a learning platform with over 20 videos and downloadable documents to get you started and prepared for attending the workshop. In those videos, whenever they're updated, you will get access to that content. We will also make sure on the workshop that you get a one-to-one consultation with a property investor so that you can have a bespoke strategy specific to your life so that you can hit the ground running after the workshop. We don't want you to attend a course after course after course. We want you to get results now. To secure your place in our world-renowned 5-star rated sellout property workshop, click the link in the show notes to secure your spot now. Spaces fill up quickly, so don't delay. Yeah.
Okay, so what we teach, the way that we teach to invest is pretty simple. It's not rocket science. You don't need degree level maths.
Yeah.
To do it. You do need to understand basics of numbers, but it's not easy because you have to work hard to do it. Anything that looks too easy, generally, I think you need to look at deeper and ask, why is this looking so easy? I'll give an example. Well, there's many examples. Here's another one, right? So when we started investing in Liverpool, doing HMOs in Liverpool, I was copying a model that I learned and developed in Birmingham, which is where I went to university, turning 3-bed terraced houses into 6-bed ensuite student houses of a high spec. Then looked to Liverpool to do the same thing. It ticks a lot of the same boxes. And when I got there, it was interesting because I saw a load of new build student developments going up there, and they were being sold as studios, and again, painting the picture, living the dream. Students living in big soulless blocks outside of the town centre, where they get a little studio room, and there's a gym there, and you've got a cafe on the ground floor, and all this kind of stuff. And they were selling off units, studio units within these buildings. And it was an overseas investor actually who contacted me and said, what do you think of this? I was like, well, okay, good question. Here's what I think of it. It's being sold, the numbers off the top of my head, but they are pretty accurate, I think. They're being sold units, 1-bed units at 90 grand, roughly, and being guaranteed a yield of 7% for the first 2 years. Okay. So for somebody with a bit of cash and looking to just put a bit of cash into something, can look attractive.
Yeah.
Yeah. 90 grand, so all great. Put down 90 grand. I get 7% on my 90 grand.
Yeah.
And it's guaranteed for 2 years. Awesome. Okay. So, my question to the investor, okay, well, have you done your research on A, this developer?
Yep.
B, have you looked at the wider market? How much have you investigated? Do students in Liverpool want to live there? Because I knew that area and it was not a great area. And it's a little way out of the city centre, not on any bus routes. And I think, the investor had just been kind of believing of the sales pitch.
Yeah.
Because surely these guys know what they're doing, right? So they're telling me I can get 7%. It's guaranteed. I said, yeah, it might be guaranteed for 2 years.
Then what?
But then what? What if you can't fill it? What if students don't want to live there? Then what are you going to do? I'll just sell it. Have you looked into that? Because how are you selling that? Because you don't own the freehold, right? And it's not a leasehold flat. And the investor was like, what do you mean? I said, well, okay, this is where you now need to learn. And, and I heard investors that had bought into these kind of units and that they, after 2 years, the rent dried up. And because they were in the wrong place, they hadn't done their due diligence and they hadn't checked with local, student letting agents about where students want to actually live.
Yeah.
And to get the 7% yields, they had to be charging something like £120 a week. Okay, and I'll show you, and then I'll go back to what we did, and you'll see the difference. So when so they were left holding a unit that was then empty after 2 years, and they couldn't sell them either because they didn't own the right to sell them because of the way the contracts were set up. It wasn't a sellable unit. The only way you could sell it was to another investor, but now you didn't have a 7% yield to offer that other investor. So who was going to pay 90 grand for it? Answer, nobody. Okay, so compared to what we did there, and this is where we kind of really opened their eyes to what you could do with investing, was look, while you were spending 90 grand on a unit for one person, we were buying houses, 3-bedroom terraced houses within, I'm not even joking, within about 400 meters. Okay, 500 meters at max from where this unit was. First one we bought that was £63,000 for a 3-bed terraced house, right in the student area, right on the bus route, 15-minute walk to the uni. And then we would spend another 80 grand on that.
Yeah.
To turn it into a 6-bed ensuite student house, really high standard. So we're in for what? Under 150,000. But then that property was worth 220,000, which meant we could refinance and put all the money we put into it. Yeah. And then we had 6 people living in that one house and we were netting over £1,000 a month after all costs. Yeah. So when I explained that way of investing to this investor, that was a total eye opener. Say, look, was yours easy to do? Yeah, it was really easy. You just put a deposit down and sat back and that was that. So easy, yes, but it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And it brought a nightmare. Whereas our way was a lot harder, not that difficult, beginning. Simple, do this process, but took more work. But in the end of it, you've got a property that is a genuine investment that cash flows very well. All your money's back out. And guess what? You can then use that money and roll it into the next one and build a portfolio. Yeah. And that was a difference. And that's why I love that Victorian terrace model. There's lots of other reasons, but that's one example.
Yeah. I think the whole thing that we say about simple, not easy, it is hard. It's hard work. I just want to quantify the hard work, right? It's not that you're working our hard work, right? So we're not, you don't get up in the morning, you're not working 9 till 7 to be a full-time property investor. When we say hard work, we actually mean it takes effort out of the norm in that you might need to to take actions that you wouldn't normally do. And as human beings, we find that tricky, difficult, hard, if you like. So it's not like this is really, really, really hard and you're never going to actually be able to do it. It's just that it's challenging. And I would say that, if we were to count the amount of hours we actually spend working on building a property business, it's very, very small. But we've honed our skills to the point where we don't need to put a huge amount of effort in. It's more getting resourceful, overcoming challenges. And when you're starting out, you're having to get your head around all the different actions that you're having to take that are different and new. That's hard. And then you're having to fit that in while maybe working in your full-time life, business, job, whatever it is that you do. That's the hard bit. But once you've done the first deal, done the second deal, done the third deal, actually the hard, if you like, just changes. The bigger you grow, the bigger the challenges you get, so the more resourceful you have to be. I think I just wanted to quantify this whole like hard thing that you keep talking about, because I don't want to scare people off.
No, it's not. I'm just trying to make the point that nothing that's good comes easy.
Correct.
Right? If something looks good and it looks really easy, you've got to question it.
Yeah.
Because whilst I'm saying yes, you do have to work quite hard initially, you do. But then once you've done that deal and it's rented out, then it's practically no work.
Yeah.
Until you start the next one, and then you're going to have to do some work towards it. I just want to bust some of the myths around. It's easy. It's not easy. Okay, it is quite simple.
It's really simple.
But the main thing is, it's worth it, because once you've created that and you've done the work, it pays you month in, month out for as long as you own that building, that asset.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. So yeah, I'm not saying it's 80 hours a week worth of work.
No.
But sometimes you've got to do things like, well, I'm about to drive down to our investment area in Liverpool to go and manage a survey that's happening.
Yeah.
That's an 8-hour round trip, but it's not hard work, is it? It's something I've got to do, but I can bring lots of other things into that, and I've got 4 hours in the car where, I can put on my podcasts and audiobooks and things like that. So I quite like that time. I can, use that time when I'm in Liverpool to do that survey, but also go and meet other people that I need to meet.
Yeah. And when was the last time you even were down in Liverpool?
I was trying to remember. I don't think I've been this year.
Yeah. So
we've got a portfolio of properties there. So, once you've done the work to set it up, they're not very hard.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, this morning, so Monday, we spent the morning going on a dog walk, sort of just discussing businessy stuff and what we're going to do for the week and what the plans are. That to me isn't work. We got planning permission last week, and we didn't celebrate that because I've had a stinking cold and the boys have had far too much in their social calendars for us to even pause and take a breath. But development starting next Monday, and so that's exciting. So we've got lots to do this week to get set up for that happening. But again, none of that is hard. It's just there's a lot to do.
Yeah,
exciting though.
It is very exciting. Yeah. So I think that's another episode in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Planning permission, the highs and lows of planning permission.
No, that is a podcast nobody wants to listen to. A podcast on planning would be never ending and always painful.
But I think it'd be useful, because I think the planning process can scare a lot of people. And
it scares us, and we've been doing it for years and years. No, it doesn't scare us. It's just
you've got to be able to play. You got to be able to play the game.
Yeah, you got to play the game. That's it.
You got to learn the game.
You got to learn the rules of this game and understand that the players.
Well, it's taken us a couple of goes to learn the game.
Yeah.
Really, with planning. But anyway, I think that is an episode there. If you want an episode on planning permission and how to deal with it, we'll get our planning consultant on, and you can fire some questions. Yeah. We'll have a list of questions for him. So if you want to hear that, let us know, and we can do one on planning. I'm going to list a few other reasons why I love Victorian terraced houses.
Oh, you're back on the Victorian houses.
That is what
I think you love them more you love me.
This is what this episode is about.
I've been enthusiastic about anything for years.
Well, certainly not about my football team at the moment, that's for sure. Right, where was I? Yeah, Victorian terraces. Right. Yeah, so we're looking at new builds versus terraces. I think we've looked at the numbers. We've looked at a lot of the reasons why we don't encourage investors to do new builds.
Well, do you know what? We can just sit down and run the numbers with them, and the numbers will just show them why they shouldn't be buying it. But
Okay, are there any instances apart from flipping new builds where new builds could be a good thing then?
well, if I was the developer building the new builds, then yes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so yeah, if you're going to get into new builds, be the developer.
Yeah.
Okay, that is, I think, the rule. And as I said, unless you're very niche and you really understand a particular market for flipping new builds on, but be aware that you are very vulnerable to market conditions. But otherwise, yeah, be the developer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you make money in new build, be the developer.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so just a couple of things on Victorian terraces. I love them. There's loads of them. Okay, so if you're looking at building a portfolio, I mean, you can generally build a portfolio over a few streets, a handful of streets. If I look at our Birmingham HMOs and our Liverpool ones, they're all within about 200 metres of each other. Yeah.
Well, we've got properties on the same road, and I get confused about all the different numbers on the roads, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Well, you don't do detail.
Yeah. How many on that street do we have? I don't know.
Yeah.
Apparently, if you own all the properties on the street, you can rename the street. Just an FYI.
Actually, I don't think you need to own all of them. I think it's 2/3, isn't it?
Oh, that's
I don't
something
think
we
you need
need
to
to
own them
find
all.
out.
Yeah, I don't think you need to own them all. But that's one to. I'll chat GPT that later. Find out.
Okay, let's do that.
But yeah, so for investors looking at Victorian terraced houses are great. When I'm out mentoring out on the streets, wherever I am in the country, generally, we always go look at Victorian terraces because they make great buy-to-lets. They're easy to revalue. They're easy to value them because you look at them and they're the same. You get a street of 100, 200 houses on it, and they're all pretty much the same. So if you're renovating one, what the end value is going to be because you'll find one very close by that probably has been renovated. So it's very easy to do your comparisons of a done-up value, find your done-up values. Same with rents. A 3-bed terrace on one street is going to rent for the same as a 3-bed terrace further down that street or on that street. So it makes your life as an investor much easier when you buy something that is quite uniform. Same thing in Scotland. It's not Victorian builds, but it's more kind of like 50s, 60s builds. The local authority type builds, same thing. Yeah, they're all built in streets and streets and streets, all of the same thing. They value similar, they rent similar. Makes your life really, really easy. The thing I see a lot of, again, newbie investors coming in, they want to do something different or quirky. They start looking at church conversions and things like that. I know, stop doing that. Don't do that. Don't buy churches. Go and look at standard Victorian terraced houses, 2 up, 2 downs, 3 up, 2 downs. People love them. People love to rent them. People love to buy them. It makes your life so much easier as an investor. So that's why I love them.
Average houses for average people that will pay average prices.
Yeah. But I said versatility, a good 3-bed terrace in the right place can be an HMO as well. They're easy to extend. You can go up into the loft. You can go around the back because they have gardens. So you can turn a 3-bed terrace. I've seen 3-bed terraces being turned into 10-bedroom student HMOs.
It's brilliant.
Cash flow machines. So that's why I love them.
That just makes me want to do a HMOs in Scotland versus England. And obviously I don't want to do a Scotland versus England podcast episode because that could get messy. But there are definitely strategies that lend themselves better to south of the border than it does north of the border. And you saying terraced houses converting into HMOs, just to clarify, we are talking generally south of the border for that.
Generally, yeah. Just because of without going into a geography lesson.
Or the fact that England, blah, blah.
Let's not get into Scotland v England because that's gonna end badly.
for you mainly.
Right, so have we done that? New builds versus Victorian terraces?
We've done it. Yeah, I think, look, if you want me to expose who is being naughty in the marketplace trying to sell new builds on the back of a property education business, DM me on Instagram. If you want us to do a session on running the numbers on how to see if a deal actually stacks up or not, then again, let us know on our Facebook community, Property Wealth System community page. You know our website where it is. You can actually even apply on our website for a consultation call. So with an actual investor to sit down and have a chat with you about your investing, your portfolio, and the best plan moving forward. So that's available for all of our listeners that tune into this podcast.
Absolutely. So what's coming up? You've got an event this week.
I have got an event. This one is a one-off in Scotland, in Edinburgh. It's quite nice. I can stay at home while I'm doing this one. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the 11th, 12th, 13th of October in the Village Hotel in Edinburgh. You do need to book your space. You can't just rock up. And in order to do that, again, check out propertywealthsystem.co.uk. We have a 2-day big event in London XL Centre on the 13th and 14th of November. And then the first weekend in December, I think it's I want to say the 8th, 9th, 10th, but anyway, the first physical weekend in December, we'll be holding our 3-day workshop in London. We're going to England. There we are.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely come and see us at the Investor Show in November. So we're going to be there. It'd be great to meet as many of you as we possibly can. So do come see us.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, great to talk to you again, Caroline. Another feisty, well, it wasn't too feisty this time.
I was easy on you because I got a cold. But for our listeners, tune in again next week for some more interesting topics about all things property with Property Wealth System.
And we'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Bye now.
Remember to click the link in the show notes for you to access a free online 1-hour training special that's worth over £1,000 to start and scale your property business today. Click the link in the show notes to watch.